We collect our old jeans, recycle them, and reincorporate that recycled content into our new jeans.
Hi everyone! Today we have a new guest from Denim to Denim. We have Laura Vicaria, and she is a CSR manager of Mood Jeans. Hi Laura!
Hi Nicola, thanks so much for having me.
Jeans is a topic we start to discuss in our last talk, and it's very interesting because they say that it's very polluting. We are gonna see with you if it's really like this and what we can do with that. I always try to explain the brand and what they do, but I find out that the people that are in front of me are much better to do that.
So Mood Jeans is a circular denim brand. It is the only circular denim brand in the world. We collect our old jeans, recycle them, and reincorporate that recycled content into our new jeans. So all of our jeans contain between 23 and 40% of post-consumer recycled cotton, which basically means cotton that has been recycled from products, specifically jeans that have been worn. We lease our jeans for a period of 12 months to our customers. Our customers then have the freedom to say, okay, I want to keep them longer, or I don't want them anymore. And once they don't want them anymore, we ask our customers to send the jeans back to us. This is very much part of our big mission of really taking responsibility over our own waste.
And this is the shift between this linear model that we always have used to work and live to a circular model that's not about only recycling, but it's really like I make a product, but I need to think as well, what do we do with that after the end of life? And nobody did it until now. So great, guys, you are doing that. I want to connect to a previous talk we had with the CY. So where they do beachwear, they also take back a garment, not only their garment, but any garment you can bring, and they give discount. And they are patenting a model called R3, where actually they are doing something like this, because the problem is that how do you get back your old clothes, but how do you collect them and what do you do with that?
We do take back our own mud jeans, but also any other pair of jeans that contain at least 96% cotton. Any pair of old jeans in their closet. And when they do send that back, we give them a discount. It's all handled by our logistics partner. They have been trained to really distinguish between, say, a pair of jeans that have been just sent back for an exchange or return, a new pair, or whether they are an old pair of mud jeans that are still in good condition, because those are put in a separate basket where they are washed and form part of our vintage collection, which we sell in sort of a separate space, more with specific events that we try to raise awareness. Or they're able to say, okay, this is an old pair of mud jeans that cannot be worn anymore, or it's a pair of jeans that has nothing to do with mud jeans, it should go for recycling. The jeans that are sent for recycling, they are collected there, and once or twice a year, it really depends on the quantity that we have. We ship it to our recycling suppliers, which are based in Spain.
It's difficult for a brand to collect enough clothes to recycle them, and there is not a government association that do that.
For sure, it is a challenge, and that is a challenge that we've had. And even at that once a year time, we don't have enough to fill up an entire truck. And over the years, we have been tracking as to sort of how many jeans we sent back for recycling over how many jeans we are actually incorporating into our new jeans. So we are putting in old content into our new fabric, but sometimes, and especially at the beginning, we didn't have enough old jeans to match the amount of new jeans that we were producing. So in that case, our supplier in Spain, who's called Recover, they are collecting this material or these old garments from other places. They do have to collaborate with the sorters, with the people that collect all of those old garments.
What is sustainability for Laura?
Personally, for me, it's all about respecting the planetary boundaries. That's the way that I see sustainability. There is a limit to our planet. Unfortunately, we have somehow ignored that and we have to relearn to do things and produce things and function within this planet, respecting those boundaries, using resources in a way that, we are respecting that eco balance, but simultaneously the way that we are using those materials, we are not preventing future generations from having the same access to the planet.
Is it true that the impact of denim is very big in the environment?
Yes, absolutely. It is very true. And it's also considered to be one of the dirtiest items in our wardrobes. And that's also interestingly why Bert van Staan, the CEO of Mud Jeans, decided to work with denim. Two-folded approach there. I mean, he really wanted to go out there and demonstrate that there is an alternative way of doing fashion, but he needed something symbolic. A pair of jeans was really the perfect symbol because whether you like fashion or not, it's in your wardrobe. And this has a lot to do with two elements: the fact that it's made in most cases entirely out of cotton, and cotton is just a commodity that requires a lot of water, but it's also typically conventional cotton is just exposed to a lot of toxic chemicals in the form of insecticides and pesticides. And depending on the agricultural regulations of where you're purchasing your cotton from, the dirty side is more related to the social element, where the cotton farmers and the people picking the cotton are not taking the precautions to protect themselves against these chemicals. So there is that element. And then there's the element of, as you said already, the water use and chemicals that go into dyeing. So typically denim requires a lot of water for the dyeing process, and the chemicals historically had been also very toxic.
Yeah, and I'm sure that in Mud Jeans you tackle all these points and you improve it. What was the biggest challenge there? What did you do? Like, where your cotton coming from? How do you treat? How do you make sure that the washes are not polluting that much?
To throw out some numbers, like a pair of mud jeans uses 93% less water than an industry standard pair of jeans. I believe it's 73% less CO2 and 51% less biodiversity impact compared to industry standard. And the way that we have achieved this is really because of certain elements. The first one is that I explained a little bit at the beginning that our jeans contain between 23 and 40% post-consumer recycled cotton. But the rest of the cotton that we use to make the jeans is GOTS certified organic cotton. And working with GOTS specifically ensures that first, there's no toxic chemicals associated with that cotton, no insecticides or pesticides are used, but also that the farmers are paid fair wages and that they are working within the right conditions. But also immediately that cotton then is using less water because it's using sustainable agriculture techniques, for example. Second element is the fact that we use post-consumer recycled cotton. Quite simply, it's the fact that we are not extracting that raw material from the earth, which causes that intense impact level. And then, of course, this I really have to give the recognition to our supply chain partners. They really work with state-of-the-art technology in the production of denim. So they have the technology to wash and clean the water multiple times over before it's released. To our manufacturers in Tunisia, for example, they recycle 95% of the water, using it over and over again. That 5% that is missing is actually evaporated and they fill it back up with rainwater. And last but not least, it's also the chemicals. So we use cradle to cradle certified dyes. There's a new technology called, for example, foam dyeing, which uses 100% less water just because it's applied with foam, and it has a significant lower impact from a chemical perspective. But also we have implemented a said DHC, basically talking more here about cleaner chemistry. So we've applied said DHC chemical policy that all of our suppliers have signed and are implementing and working towards.
Yeah, you mentioned something specific, foam dyeing. I don't know if you have a little bit more things you want to share with us.
Well, we have to go back a few steps. Typically, when a pair of jeans, the dark blue or the indigo blue that comes from a pair of jeans, that color is typically applied right before you weave the fabric. So you start dyeing the individual yarns. And that dyeing process nowadays is more done with synthetic indigo. And you pass these yarns through, let's call it like 7 or 8 different types of baths of this indigo. So as it dips in, it catches the color, it comes out, it kind of oxidizes, and then it goes back in. And at the end, you have this dark blue color. As you can imagine, that consumes a lot of water because you have all of these tubs that are needed to dye the yarn. So they have developed a completely new technique where you scrap off all of those tubs. You don't need them anymore. You only need one spot where you apply a foam of that dye, and that application finishes the step of the dyeing process. So really exciting. And as I mentioned, the fact that you eliminate that means that you're no longer using water. We are using it in a couple of our styles and working towards applying that technique to other fabrics that we're using, basically.
There is another topic, Laura, that we often touch, and this is about certification. How much are certification important for you and for the final customer?
You see more and more brands talking about sustainability, which is really exciting. But at the same time, there is a challenge to be able to really know if a brand is truly sustainable. What are the claims that they're making? And I believe that's really where there is an important role for certification. Mud Jeans from the beginning uses certification because while we have a very transparent supply chain and we are very much aware of every element that goes into our product, we cannot really look at every single supplier that, so our buttons, our zippers, the stitching yarn, these type of things are cotton. We don't have farmers, so we have to rely on other people to develop these products for us. So as a small brand, certification is a tool that we use to carry out our due diligence of sustainability. We want to make a claim that we are sustainable, or we want to be able to back that up. And the best way to back that up is with certification. But then there's this problem where you ask the general customer, do you know what a GRS, OECOTEX 100, OCS certificate is? And it doesn't mean anything. That's a little bit the challenge there. I think there's space for either increasing the knowledge that we're sharing with our customers, so really teaching them what all of these certificates mean. And in fact, Mud Jeans has tried to do this. In our sustainability report, we break down all of these super complicated certificates and explain what they stand for. In the future, there will be a very important role for certification to prevent this type of greenwashing. And whether it should come from an NGO or potentially government institution that regulates what is truly a sustainable company, and then that becomes a certificate, then yes, I think that could be a really interesting role for certification.
So traceability is also another topic that is coming up a lot lately, and I personally believe is super important to back up also what we say and what we declare. How do you trace, let's say, first of all, are you able to trace your cotton until which level, and how can you do that?
Mud Jeans is a very small brand, and as a circular brand, we have from an early stage made the decision to only work with a handful of suppliers. And the objective there was very much to be able to know exactly where every element comes from and know our individual suppliers and map that out very clearly. It means that we have full visibility of where everything comes from. And more importantly, with some of the bigger suppliers, so our manufacturer or our fabric supplier, we've built very solid relationships with them. Going to your cotton question, it's not so easy. In fact, I think a lot of brands have this problem where, again, it's the role of certification. Because it's so hard to really know the farmer behind our cotton, what we have to rely on is a certification that tells us that our farmer is okay. So, and that is our GOTS certificate. And that is as far as we know. We get that certificate, and that's sort of the only box that we can tick. However, I think there's a really interesting development now on regenerative cotton production and even local cotton production here in Europe, where I think it will be a really interesting space to have a closer relationship with our cotton farmers, and as to your comment, maybe even potentially be able to trace much more closely where our cotton is coming from.
Yeah.
And final thought on this, there's also a really interesting development of traceability with blockchain. So we are working towards that. We're setting up a system to trace our supply chain on the blockchain and have a QR code that our customers can scan and they can see the whole supply chain.
We had in a talk Massimo Brandellero, that is the founder of the ID Factory, and is working on a similar tool like this, but is more specialized in footwear. They do trace the material, but to get to the farm, it will take some time. What do you think is the limit of the fashion industry to really become to the sustainable, to the next step?
The fashion industry is hugely dependent on natural resources, on nature, on cotton, on animals for the leather, on the wool from the sheep, on trees and bamboo, if we're talking about, other sort of chemically produced fibers. We're hugely dependent on that. And that's simultaneously the reason why I think the fashion industry should play a humongous role in this fight against climate change. Because even from a business level, we have a source of interest to ensure that everything remains more or less okay, as much as we can. So is there a limit? I'm not sure, but I think as climate change, well, it's already here, but as it gets worse, we will have to learn to really incorporate elements of circularity, or whatever you want to call it, where you start recycling your materials and using them better and working differently with our suppliers, because I also think that the developing regions are the ones that are going to be hit the hardest from climate change issues. So we're going to have to learn to work with them and support them. So, and if we've learned anything from COVID, is that we're all very much connected, and climate change is one of these issues where we're all going to be impacted.
Do you have anything else you want to share with us, Laura?
First, of course, I would encourage the listeners to go out there and be curious about the clothes that they're wearing, particularly with jeans. Check out, what materials are going into your jeans. A small tip is try to go for jeans that are made with organic cotton, and if you can, recycled cotton. Wash your jeans as little as possible. This sounds weird, but you conserve them, take care of them. Don't put them in the tumble dry, because that ruins your jeans, but also you're saving energy. And last but not least, if anyone's really curious to try this circular element to denim, I welcome them to check out our website, and I welcome them to also use the coupon code WalkTheTalk for a 20% discount.
Thank you so much. That was very highlighting. We learned so much about denim and about jeans today, Laura.
Thank you very much.